Demetrius, what's your last name?
Knight.
Knight, Demetrius and Dennis Knight. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
Alright, it's Fragus Scottish. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Alrighty, so 1, 2, 3. Alrighty, welcome to the Anyone podcast. This is episode 1, week 1 of season 1, episode 1 of the Anyone podcast. I'm here with Dennis Knight and Demetrius Knight. And so hey. So we're here at Anyone Comics, Demetrius' shop, which is Six Space. He's gracious enough to let us use it for the podcast. And we're going to talk about Cross, which is Dennis's comic today. Dennis and Kirk's, I should say. Dennis's. Yeah. Most of Dennis's. Shared with Kirk. Dennis writing Cross. What's the inspiration behind it? Very gritty comic.
Just life in the city, things I've seen working nightclubs late at night.
Right.
No shady elements, no shady things happening.
Sure.
That's like the main inspiration I get, just like life in the city.
Right. No, and it has a very like urban feel. I would say in general,
yeah.
It's reminiscent of like, I don't know if you've seen pictures like Good Time, like Safdie Brothers, sort of like very very urban, but like fast paced and like sort of like everything is like very high stakes. Like your main character in the comic walks into a place and you don't really know what's gonna happen next. And I think it's like every time you flip the page, it's a little bit like oh my god, what's gonna happen? How long has the first issue been out?
A couple of years actually.
A couple of years.
It got published, I want to say 2013.
Okay.
And it debuted at New York Comic Con
that
year. So it was like, first of all, I couldn't believe that the comic book. This is the first thing I ever wrote, like, and it was published. So it was like, okay. So it's my first project, and it's gonna be debuted at like the biggest comic convention on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. I wanted to throw up like at least 3 times. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. All the bright lights, all the people, just like this like surreal experience. I couldn't believe it.
Right. No, it's like, it must be weird because we were actually talking about this right, but when we were still setting up about how like working in the creative industry, it's like you grind and you grind and you grind. Sure. And so when anything actually comes of it, it's like, what? Like
exactly.
No matter how,
you can't believe it.
Yeah, like it's like the best thing ever. And so like what was the point where you started just writing comics? Like, where was it?
Well, I'm not there yet. I still have a day job, but my day job is very, very cooperative as far as like giving me time off, like do conventions, do events, do interviews. Like a lot of times, I use my vacation time to like fly out to California, do a convention out there, like wherever the convention happens to be, and I have the time to actually like make my way out.
Right, exactly. No, and like I feel like that's also I would consider as part of like making it is like when it's just as big a priority as any other work you're doing in your life, and you can afford to sort of like dedicate time to it and stuff. So when did you start carrying across at the shop then? Shop's been open for.
First when we opened because Kirk, the artist, he's a friend of mine who's been helping me, watch a store whenever I needed time off. Knowing that he's a freelance artist, because he has that schedule. Because he's a freelance artist, he's not a guy who needed a job and needed a weekly schedules, and a regular paycheck, right? So that's part of the reason why I brought him on is because, I wouldn't know when I needed him or when I could even afford to bring him in, especially for the early year. But I knew he was an artist. He's talented. He drew the Wolverine on our glass board.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
and designed the T-shirts, New Anyone Comics.
Oh, yes, actually, which we didn't bring down.
We didn't bring down. We can run up and grab one in a minute.
It always pause and run upstairs.
Yeah. Check the link below to buy T-shirts, maybe potentially if it goes up online.
Yeah.
They are really really sick T-shirts.
Yeah, they're great. Kirk does capture the kind of the urban element really well.
Right.
Just like the city imagery well and stuff, right?
It's true. Yeah, even like I think on the shirt, it's like it shows this corner, right? It's like you see like the Union Street sign and like it.
Well, we took some liberties with the quarter. Actually, there's no sneakers hanging off on the traffic light. At least not in 2018.
Yeah, it's like the Sandalot, like kids hanging out at the comic book shop.
So Crossfire 2013 is it now? What's the next issue coming out?
Hopefully soon. Because the thing is, like, Kirk just got back from traveling overseas.
Right. But what's the next issue number though?
7,
right?
So issue 7, do you find that now the story is actually kind of stuck in a specific time period that's not reflective of today?
No, because the thing with Kirk is like, one thing I love about Kirk is that he takes a lot of liberties as far as like, you know, like the style, the cityscape, things like that. And it's like, he has a lot of like creative ideas also. Mm-hmm. So like, we're trying to like, with issues, probably like, not issue 7, because issue 7 is like done as far as like art. Mm-hmm. But issue 8, he has some ideas he wants to incorporate, kind of like take the two storylines and merge them together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm excited about that because like I wrote all the scripts like back in like 5 years ago. So like to revisit the scripts and see what works, what doesn't work with his ideas and what he wants to do. Might have to do some rewrites, but I welcome that because I know like what his ideas is gonna make the story even better.
Right.
So I'm so excited.
Do you ever find that like when you return to something that you've written that long ago that it's sort of like, what was I thinking? Like I gotta change that.
Sometimes that's like, because the thing is like, as you write, your characters evolve, the story evolves. So it's like you might have that, like you might have an idea of what you want to happen, but based on like what happens in previous issues, like there might have been changes here or there, might not reflect the changes of the continuity. What's the word? Continuity.
The continuity between
continuity of the story. So you have to change things. You just have to. You have to be ready to adapt and survive, and also like make the story the best you can every time. Every chance you get.
A big thing that I really find interesting about Cross in particular is. So I read the first issue and I was like totally confused, and I loved that because I was like what the fuck is going on? Like, I have no clue, but like I feel like that can either go both ways. It can be a turn off to people, but at the same time I was like, I gotta get issue 2. Like what the hell's going on? Like you just had like that headline in the first issue where it's like, meanwhile in an alternate universe, and I'm like, what? Like what do you mean alternate universe? Don't do me like that. Like it's, and so like instantly that like sort of kicked in my love for like sci-fi, and it's like where is this going? But at the same time, like very much remaining like the urban feel with, I can't remember what the character's name is, but who's trying to help her mother, and like there's like these smaller stories going on beneath this like very broad scope of like this massive sort of scientific event is taking place simultaneously, and that's a very cool thing, I think, and like hard to accomplish in a lot of books.
Man, it's not easy. I really like shook the dice on that aspect because like I want to do something similar but something different because. New York stories, although it's always like a gritty city, there's always a character, there's a good guy, there's a bad guy, so you kind of can predict like what's gonna happen next. I wanted to do something that was familiar, but at the same time it's like, oh wait, so there's another universe, so there's things going on in that universe, and how these two universes can merge, like. So it was a risk. I'm glad it paid off. People like it. From what I hear, I don't read my own stuff because it's weird, but weird for me. But like people love it, so I'll just like keep going with it. Trying to make it better.
And that's awesome. Like I find. Like for my writing personally, that I like a project like that would really scare me off a little bit, just because of the idea of like you worry that you're cramming too much into it and you're overthinking it, and it's like everybody's like, oh, like take your craziest story idea, like strip it down to 2 sentences, and that's what your story's about. And so like I can't imagine how hard it must be to be like, oh, but I want this to happen, and it's like, oh, should I let that happen? Just as a writer, like getting carried away.
You always have to kind of like weigh the balance. Okay, what would make the most sense? Who would get more out of the story, then kind of you weigh the pros and cons. Well, if this happens, then that affects this, it affects this. It's like a domino effect. So I'm gonna make sure that the dominoes kind of fall in the right way and doesn't like leave the reader like totally like confused,
Totally.
So you have like an ending planned for Cross that you're building towards?
Is it written?
Yeah, I mean,
or are you improvising along like Peter David style, improvising towards an ending?
Well, I have an idea of what I want to happen.
Yeah, but it's not fixed.
It's not like a set ending, but I have an idea of what should happen based on like. But the thing is, like with Kirk, he has his ideas, so based on his ideas, it might take a totally different direction from what I planned. Yeah. So I have an idea, but like I'm really glad that Kirk is like excited and collaborating with me, like as far as the story and things.
No,
like that.
and in other interviews I've read with you, I think one of the most interesting dynamics about this comic is your collaboration with Kirk, because it seems like it's very hand in hand. Like the art inspires the writing as much as the writing inspires the art.
Exactly.
And I feel like it's a rare thing. Like you do find comic book artists and writers who collaborate really well to each other, but like to sort of be in stride with each other is almost a different beast altogether. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It didn't come easy. I remember like when I first started working with Kirk, I was so meticulous and so detailed. The scripts were like 60 pages. So imagine a script 60 pages for a 22-page comic book.
Oh my god, were you Alan Moore?
Kirk was like, dude, I can't, it's too much. He said, dude, I can't, it's too much detail. You gotta loosen up a little bit, give me some creative
breathing
control.
room.
Yeah. So then it's like, you know what? Okay, cool. So like this next script, I stripped it down to 20 pages. Okay, my descriptions were a lot broader. Man, I'm kind of ashamed of my first script because it was so detailed. It was like, okay, there's 6 bricks
on
the right corner.
It was your first time, man.
Yeah, the maroon. Like I had all these color descriptions, all these things.
Right.
He's like, dude, there's too much detail. I can't. So once I actually relaxed and loosened the reins a little bit and let him be free, be an artist.
Yeah.
The comic book improved 100-fold. It's like the panels were better, the dialogue was better because it was shorter, it was more to the point. So he actually helped me a lot as far as refining my style to get the point across.
I heard a different story from Kirk.
Oh yeah, what did he say? He hates me.
I heard you.
He's
had
a tyrant.
I heard you wanted to capture fear from him, and you had him redo the same scene 100 times because he kept failing. No, actually, no. That's Shelley Duvall in The Shining. Never mind. I'm sorry. I wish you guys up. Jesus. Stanley Kubrick. I'm sorry. I make sure Stanley Kubrick. Pardon me.
Man, first bad joke of the podcast for the first episode. Is that
make it memorable? It's the best episode ever now.
If we get successful and are making T-shirts and stuff, there's got to be a Demetrius bad joke collection, and that's the first one. That's the first out of print. No one else can buy it anymore.
I have one every day.
But that's funny, and I think that's also important because I'm always suspicious, when collaborating with other creatives as well, when it goes too well, when you instantly there should be a little bit of friction there because it's you want someone who's just as passionate about the project, maybe has a different vision for it, and then either you kind of mentally or physically put your fists up and then reach a resolution one way or another. And I think that's important for the creative process to a degree. It's you don't want someone necessarily happy-go-lucky who doesn't have an invested interest in the project.
Also is artists are very, very funny creatures. You have some artists that are dedicated, they love the project, they're all into it. You have other artists, they're just looking to get paid to do whatever, they do just enough just to get by.
Right.
So there are different levels of artists, different types of artists, and it's important that you find the right one who works with you because it's this book, I don't think any artist could do it. It has to be a specific kind of person, a person who cares about it, a person who's passionate, a person who is very familiar with cityscapes, can give an urban vibe without putting city all over the page. You just be able to see a page. Oh yeah, okay, that's a city. I'm interested. I want to see what happens next.
Yeah.
So that's what you need.
I mean, first page, he's walking into a bodega. You know, it's it's very it's very distinctive, especially if you live in the city or in any sort of urban space where. It's I can instantly identify it. It's oh shit, I think there's even a cat and the cans and everything. It's you can see
the
it.
music in the background. So
right, exactly. Yeah, it's very identifiably a New York magazine, which is another reason I think it's so great because it feels very New York and very distinct to that. And do you think that's intentional or did you just picture Gotham this sort of almost cliched
I guess it was intentional, but I wasn't aware of it at the time. I'm just writing. I wanted to set the scene. I wanted to set the tone. I wanted to open with the scene to get somebody's attention.
Right.
And I grew up in the Bronx, so bodegas are all over the place. So it's you go to the store, you hear the music, you see the cat,
exactly.
You buy your soda, you buy your chips or whatever. So just that scene just kind of resonated with me. It's okay, if I was gonna open a scene, this should be it.
Right. Man, I just realized has there ever been any bodega scenes in DC or Marvel comics, man?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's crazy, man.
That's weird. It's in the films now, right? Because in Spider-Man: Homecoming, he hangs out. He goes to the sandwich shop. Yeah.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
But it's not in the comic.
I don't believe it's in the comic book.
I've never seen it. No.
You might have put the first bodega ever in a comic book. Wow, look at that.
History.
History, right?
Yeah, the way thinking back, the way Spider-Man married Jane, in their marriage in the 80s and 90s.
Sure.
Where I'm never picturing they've ever done any shopping. So it seems like they've had Amazon Fresh
forever.
Yeah, time.
Yeah, you never see them shopping. You never see them going to a store. It's always in their apartment or Spider-Man swinging from the rooftop. So you never see them go into a store to buy a sandwich.
Yeah, never.
I've thought about that with villains in a lot of movies in Uber and how it's sometimes they're limos, but sometimes they're kind of just Toyota Camrys and they're sitting in the back seat and I'm Uber wasn't around then. It's what it feels like though, and it's
things that keep you up at night.
Except, yeah, it's true. The only difference is the guy doesn't have an earpiece on. And he's hollering at his cousin or something about. picking up the Eat Fresh or whatever. Like,
right?
It's wild.
Metropolis probably priced bodegas out of their city.
Probably. So.
Probably. It's a bougie place, Metropolis.
Right. And then Gotham, like.
Gotham's only bodegas, I think, but they never show them.
They never show them, so I'm thinking like most of them closed out because they're afraid to be in business over there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good point. Very good point.
That's weird to think about though, because I feel like a lot of mafia work is going on in the Batman universe, right? A lot of like mobs.
There's a lot of Italian restaurants in the Batman universe, man.
It's true, but I feel like in contemporary Gotham, they'd be squeezing out the bodegas, not the restaurants, because I feel that's what I picture like. Whatever mafia scene exists in mob scene in New York.
Well, we're going to a different field. Contemporary comics, all the crime should be white collar crime. That like there's more superheroes than there is like robberies happening, around the city.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's true. That's weird to think about.
Yeah, like the real heroes right now in comics, theoretically at this time, 2018, should be characters like Oracle, who are hackers who can out hack, I guess, whatever.
Right, and like that's like I haven't watched this show actually, and everybody gets on me about it. I don't know if either of you have, but Mr. Robot is apparently very, very focused on that.
I've heard of it. I heard it's like a brilliant show, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
I know it's apparently but it's like this idea of like wars are fought on computers, and hacking is sort of like where the real thing is, which I guess is true. But I don't know. I don't like to think about that. I like my physical wars. Like it's like too creepy.
They're more they're more visual. They're more they're more movie. You can show those wars. It's hard to show. Like
exactly. And it can be like minorly successful. Like Captain America: Civil War. I thought not Civil War. Winter Soldier did a pretty good job cinematically of showing that. Sort of the implications of technology.
Yeah, sure. Hacking what super weapons and superheroes need to physically save the day.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's now a criticism that kind of annoys me, or the review of that movie is like, oh, it's a political thriller. And it's like, okay, relax. It's not a political thriller. Yeah. Like, it's an interesting concept. Right. It's a superhero movie.
The politics, the political stance it's taken is it's anti-surveillance.
Yeah, like NSA.
Right, which I think most people generally are. ... with exception.
Sure.
With that exception.
Right. So you get the occasional jerk who's not anti-surveillance who's like, I'm not doing anything wrong anyway, so who cares? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't like people watching me. Like, it's weird. Like,
I've never met anyone who's anti-surveillance.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
it's a conversation.
I've definitely met people.
I'm sorry, who's pro-surveillance rather?
Who's pro-surveillance? I don't think it's necessarily pro-surveillance. I think it's just like indifference. Like it's like I don't really care. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Oh, I met a lot of different people. Yeah.
There's
tons of different people.
Yeah, just stop talking to me about this, you nerd. Like, like I don't care. Like, leave me alone. But I don't know. Do you think it's funny because Cross doesn't really get in too much into that, into sort of like the politics of technology and stuff. Although you do you're close to it though. Like you're in the realm of this discussion.
I touch base. The thing is, I don't like getting too preachy with my comics. Like, there's things happening all over. There's bad things here and there, but like, I feel it's very dangerous as a writer to take a political stance and like voice it in your comic,
right?
Because you're gonna offend somebody. Once you offend somebody, there goes your fan base. You know what I mean? So I have to like have a voice, but spread lightly. And
there go all the
but also having a political voice can get sorry.
Yeah, sure.
No worries, it's all good. Got a little bit of shop business going on in the background. But no, Demetrius was saying about like a political voice and like establishing that and like. It's funny because we were just talking about. Wait, Serge, before you go, who were we talking about earlier about the guy who at the rally he made the speech, Superman?
Oh, Dean Cain.
Dean Cain. Yeah. The artist got too political. And eventually it came back to bite him or something. We were just talking about like a similar theme earlier, but like it's.
What I was gonna say is that when you do take a political stance, it's also very easy to. I think you can just as easily rally people, more of a fan base than you did before.
Sure.
One thing. I don't want to seize the conversation, but I had an interesting conversation with a guy whose job was raising money for plays and stuff. I don't know what the title is, but like his job was to go out and get patrons for like off Broadway. Yeah, I don't think it's any Broadway, but off Broadway plays and stuff, right? That's like his entire job. He just makes connections and just sells the idea of, hey, you should sponsor this play or whatever. Right? Okay. And so meeting this guy, first opening the store, he goes, aren't you afraid? He asked the most common question that I'm sure you've gotten also, which is, aren't you afraid that digital comics are replacing physical comics?
Sure.
Right? And the answer is, having opened the store recently at the height of digital comics,
it's a good move.
it's when you're reading something digitally, you don't really feel like you own it. And the fact is, people have been reading Wikipedia entries and stuff for a long time, or they've been just hearing, getting conversations. So stuff that you like, the dispensable stuff, that's the stuff that you'll digitally read. Like, you're not into Green Lantern, but you hear the story's great, so you read a crap ton of Green Lanterns in a row. Right. You read it all at once. And you throw it away, and then, but you then read an amazing X-Men grand design story, and then you decide to collect it, right?
Right.
But anyway, but I didn't say that then. What I said was, aren't you afraid Kickstarter's replacing your job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes, and similarly not responding to me, he goes, Kickstarter's a really interesting thing, and he says, you know what the most successful crowdfunding campaigns are? He says it's the ones where the project can also be a part of a person's identity. So in a simple way, if your project can be something where someone says, I made that, I helped make that movie or comic or whatever, that adds weight to it. That gets to be on somebody's resume. Right. They have conversations and stuff, right? Similarly, when you look at successful projects, recent Kickstarter projects like Black by Kwanzaa Osagie and Jamal Igle, again, it's the premise was of what if only Black people got superpowers, right? And again, like it had that, it already had a near political position of showcasing just the Black experience, but kind of crossed over with X-Men.
Right.
And so, but that raised its money and then some in like 2 or 3 days, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So you look at
people get fired up about politics, and I think, well, the thing is, like, politics. We were talking about this earlier on the shop too. It's just like politics are just hot right now. It's like it's the most. Again, try not to be political on the show, but like it's like the most high stakes politics have ever been. Is what it feels like. Is it's like you're like a liberal and you're a conservative, and like there's like these two sides that are like just seen to the most extreme degree, kind of combating each other, and that's exciting to a degree. Like,
but that's where your senses are drawn to is the combat, right? Meanwhile, there's, I would say, for every combat you're seeing, there's 8 times more just moderates just accepting each other. You know what I mean?
It's true. No, absolutely, and like,
I mean, being neutral, in my opinion, is also a political position. As a matter of fact,
I agree with that.
Yeah. The neutral party.
Yeah, I don't know. There's never a neutral, man, because you have to. Because we can't even agree to what the baseline is, so there's no way. So then saying that you're neutral based on something, on degrees that someone may not even agree with, or just aren't even registered.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then there's also like a strong difference between getting political and sort of like talking about social issues, which I think just almost the idea of social issues comes up naturally. I think it comes up in your comic included. Like, I think, the rich and the poor, like, kind of like this classist conflict is going on. I don't really, there's not like a huge sort of like race war going on, but at the same time, it's evident in like sort of like the New York economic classes. I think like it bleeds through in certain ways, just like in certain scenes and stuff. So although you're not necessarily being political, I think you're being socially accurate or inept. You know what I mean? Like, not inept, adept, the opposite. Adept is the opposite. You're being adept, not inept, right? But no, it's really interesting. And another thing I like about you as an artist, and I've read this a lot recently, is your interest in helping other artists.
I think it kind of comes with the territory, because especially with independence, you have to support each other, because that's the only way you're going to survive. So and I'm thankful that in this business I've met so many artists, so many writers, so many letters, so many inkers, so many people that make a comic book. Mm-hmm. So it's like, for example, one of my good friends, Taylor Esposito, we did an event together a couple of years ago at another shop in Brooklyn. Mama Says Comics Rocks. Mm-hmm. It was Taylor.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, so sad about that story. It was a great, beautiful story. It was me, Taylor, myself, Kristen Gusnick. What's her name? She's a colorist. Miss Carpenter is her last name, and Greg Pak was with us. And we did a symposium on like how to make comics.
Right.
So I'm here with all these people, and like they're all my friends on Facebook, because it's so weird. It's like it's such a small world, and it's like the fact that we were able to come together to help people, give advice, how to get started, how to do this, how to do that. It was it's a wonderful thing.
Sure. Yeah, no worries. No, and I think that's really important too, because it's a lot of the purpose of this podcast is also sort of, I found Anyone Comics, and the number one thing I was drawn to about the shop was like the wall of like independent artists, and like here are people that we're interested in producing, and coming in, you'll see an artist pitching their comic to Demetrius or something like that all the time, and like I just think that's so cool. And someone who previously frequented like Midtown Comics, you just don't get there. You know what I mean? Not to tear down Midtown Comics, like they deserve every bit of respect, because I think they do what they do really, really well.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're a business, so like that,
absolutely.
Their business model works for them.
Right, and I like the idea of a guy coming home from work, in Midtown, being able to stop by a shop and pick up his favorite comic and read it on the train or something. I think what they do is important as well.
Yeah, sure.
But it's a different vibe when you're getting in, like trying to help young creatives get to it, and that's a big reason behind this podcast, is sort of having people like yourself on, and sort of advice you can give, like so let's take a step back. Like, what got you started writing comics? Like, what was like, I know you went to college for psychology, if I did my research right.
Yeah.
I imagine you were a comic book fan since you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
What'd you read?
Oh man, a big shout out to my older cousin Mike Harris. He's the one that got me into comics as a kid.
Right.
Because I was too little to like go to the shop by myself, so he would let me read his. So I just remember me and him sitting on the floor reading X-Men comics just like all day long.
Right.
Like, that he really opened my eyes to comics. Like, oh wow, it's cool. There's pictures. These people can fly. They can do this. There's like so many things going on. It was so exciting.
It's not a picture book, but it's also a medium different than a film.
It was like, because I've always been an avid reader as a kid, but I read a lot of books, like novels. So I was totally, my mind was blown, because wait, there are pictures and there are words. This is something new. This is cool.
Right.
And that's what really got me into like comics in the first place.
Yeah.
So then, like, I didn't know, because when I was a kid, I thought comics just fell out of the sky. I didn't know, like, there was a writer. I didn't know there was an artist. I didn't know there was an inker. I didn't know there was a letter.
Printer, man.
Yeah, exactly. There's a printer. All these facets.
There's a lumberjack who chopped down the tree
to make the paper.
Yeah,
exactly. So then it's like...
guy who made the staples.
There's a gardener who planted the seeds to make the trees, man.
So it's like, when you're a kid, you don't like realize all those things that go into making a comic book. So it was like, I didn't think there was a job to make comics. So then when I got older and I started doing research, I was like, wow, wait, I could do this.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, because it's like, I had no idea what I was doing. I researched, read how-to books, I borrowed people, like, hey, how do you do this? How do you make this? And I got to the point where I said, okay, wow, now I know enough to actually like take a swing at it, and then here we are.
There you go. That's how you do it, right there. You read comics and then you write them.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's true. I think that's true of any.
It's the Nike slogan, man.
Just do it.
Yeah,
it's true.
You have to just take a swing at it. Like, even if you don't know what you're doing, just figure it out as you go. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
Here's the thing. Just trace back history of comics, and there wasn't. I mean, yes, there are people who knew what they were doing, but there wasn't one point in history where people like knew what they were doing.
Right.
It's just constantly seizing opportunity, just consistently, right?
Sure.
And then we're using that term loosely. The money that Hollywood's making right now from comic book movies, that's not the money that Jack Kirby was making or Steve Ditko was making.
Exactly.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, and then there was a time when Jack Kirby, like I highly recommend reading Fred Van Lente and Ryan Dunleavy's Comic Book History of Comics. There's a lot of info there. I mean, you can find a lot of info online, but they present it where you get a sense of the period of time, right?
Sure.
And so you have Jack Kirby he did not want to get back into superhero comics in the 50s and 60s, and then when that's where the zeitgeist was going, he just kind of like begrudgingly agreed to it. And then so did what's his face, Stan Lee. Stan Lee, like, you know, he wanted to be a novelist his entire time. That's why he went by the name of Stan Lee as opposed to his real name. Right. It's because he was withholding his real name for when he was going to make his great Catcher in the Rye or Huckleberry Finn novel. Right. And he got his job because his uncle owned Marvel, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of like early on, just people like just family members or neighbors like hooking each other up with jobs. There's no Joe Kubert College that you strive to, which is in a lot of people's minds like something like a comic book Hogwarts. It was just like, what can we do to make? I mean, John Buscema had Family Members ink a lot of his work, and he was one of the greatest artists of all time. You know, it just sees whoever was around you, and the struggle isn't too different than it is today in terms of personal. It's just the landscape's a little bit different because of who's participating right now, and how much broader we've expanded. Like, back then, I mean, actually, no, even back then, Bruno Primiani was an Argentinian artist. I think he lived in New York, but when he created Teen Titans and stuff, I'm pretty sure he was in Argentina. Italian immigrant, fleeing fascism in Argentina, submitting comics in New York for DC Comics, man. It's just,
so there's no, like, you do this and you do this and you do this and then there's your comic on the shelf. Like,
there's no formula. You just have to,
no formula.
You gotta go for it.
I would say, it works, man.
I feel like the number one piece of advice you give in any sort of industry like this, though, is like, and you said it and you've said it, sort of subliminally, where it's, you just gotta read a lot of comics too. You read comics, you figure out what you like, and then that influences you, right?
You don't need to read a lot of comics. The only reason you need to read a lot of comics is to kind of develop a reverence and an understanding of what's being put out in general. But you can still, as long as you know as long as you're Scott McCloud's understanding comics, as long as you know the function of sequential images, you could tell a story theoretically. And frankly, if you don't read comics, it might influence you to tell a different kind of story than you've read before, actually.
And that's interesting, but I think there still needs to be like a preference. You know what I mean? Like what kind of story do you want to write? Like, this isn't very anime-esque. Like, it's not. We're not reading Adventure Time the comic here. It's certainly. There's humor in it at points, but it's not goofy. It's not very kiddish. It's very gritty. It's comparable to Batman in a certain extent. Like, I feel like that vision had to have been formulated by some degree. Maybe it's not just comics, maybe it's movies and music and culture that you surround yourself with.
From a lot of things like music, actually like the culture, just like comic book culture itself is like, because there's been so many great people before me that's been doing this, and I get a lot of inspiration from like Frank Miller, one of my heroes. Like, I got a lot of this, you see, like, you might get a Sin City vibe from me because he inspired me. Because he had like, I think he's like the king of like gritty images, like noir gritty images, like boom, Frank Miller, that's the first person you think of most times. And just like, you just have to like respect the people who have done it before you, and like inspiration, wisdom you can get from them, apply that to your project and make it your own.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that makes a lot of sense as far as like, I don't know, someone who has dabbled in like, writing screenplays and films in particularly, but also like, played with like the novel just like a little bit and poetry and stuff. It's like, it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, last thing you want to do is be comparing yourself to people. Like, I doubt you ever compare yourself to Frank Miller, although you're obviously influenced by him. It's because you'll just beat your brains in, right? It's like you're never gonna feel adequate in that way.
It's like, first of all, you make yourself real upset. Once you start comparing yourself to like great writers, great artists, like, first of all, you have a long way to go. I tell myself and my friends every day, like, oh yeah, you're this famous guy. I wish. I have a long way to go. I'm still learning as I go. I'm still trying out different ideas, different concepts. It's a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error. You have to be willing to keep going at it. Like, in my opinion, I'll never make it. You know what I mean? Just have to keep working. You have to keep trying out different things,
Right. And it's more, and like, again, like, it's just such a cliche, but it's true. It's about the journey, not the destination, where it's like, you take satisfaction in the journey, though. Like, it's obvious that you genuinely love what you do.
Yeah, I love it, man.
And so it's like, oh, like, I'm going to keep doing this until I make $1 zillion and then I quit, like, and then I'm done and I never have to work again. Like, it's like that's not like it's like you'll still be writing comics always, you know.
Yeah, no one makes $1 zillion and quits. I mean, if Frank Miller did, he's for some reason coming back to it.
Yeah, he always spends it all. Yeah, you heard it here.
You have to genuinely love what you do, especially in this business. Like, you're doing it to get rich, you're going to be very disappointed.
That's the thing. Like, that in my experience, there's not one person who's in it because they want to get chicks. It's at least the people who last. It's because they genuinely love what they do. But connecting to what you were saying earlier about the people helping each other out and stuff in this community and everything. That's kind of like what I try to do with the store also, right? Sure. It's I find that there's two kinds of people. There's people who are out for themselves, and then there's people who are out for their community, right?
Yeah.
Those are still people who are out for themselves, but they've learned that if your community benefits, you benefit, versus the people who will step on other people just to like, just to get the easy buck, right?
Yeah. That was really deep, dude. Like a little touch by that. Like, seriously, no, that's like really awesome.
Well, that's what but again, that's kind of what the store represents is growing this community. Look, comics. If comics can get more selfish, they'll go extinct, right? It's off-putting. You won't get new people. I think the primary goal most comic writers, retailers, everybody in the industry should have is to expand the market as much as possible, bring in more people into it, because people can't be fighting for a limited pot. You know what I mean? Like, the pot needs to expand, and it's there. It's just there's some aspect of it that's off-putting to the casual. The casual fans or whatever, the people looking for Batdick or
exactly.
There's gotta be something more than Batdick for people to grab onto. You know? Have you
seen Batdick yet?
I've seen images of it.
Yeah.
I don't see what the big deal is.
Well,
it's art.
Look, for a white guy, Dennis, it's really impressive.
Yeah, I know, right? But Dennis was like, psh, whatever. I was like, wow! I didn't know they made him that big. No, honestly, it's funny because it's not really Batdick though. It's like a shadow. It's not.
Yeah, people are getting really bent out of shape over it. It's not a big deal.
I heard him get 2 calls today at the shop that everybody's looking for Batdick.
No, because it's a thing now. It's like, I know there's like this. I think there's an edited version now, so everybody's trying to get like the original print. Like the prices skyrocket.
The edited version. Bruce Wayne bought the version and paid someone to Photoshop it.
It's so crazy because it's like, and a person on Facebook made a good point. It's like, well, it's a penis, not a big deal. Yeah. If anybody's read The Watchmen,
that's the weird thing. They're supposedly censoring that, but they're not gonna censor Watchmen in that case. Yeah.
So it was like.
Or Doomsday Clock for that matter. Yeah. Is Dr. Manhattan not going to have his penis exposed in Doomsday Clock?
Exactly.
That'd be weird.
Well, like Batman has fought with this for a while, whether he's like child accessible or not, right? And
but this is
DC has fought with this.
This is specifically a book labeled mature readers, and DC has done that with their mainstream superheroes before. Green Arrow was a mature readers comic for a while. And there's a scene where he's having sex with Black Canary, and her breasts are completely exposed, and it's full missionary style sex right there in 1987. I wonder if that's skyrocketing as a result of
maybe. Maybe.
People are like looking for
the next one. Yeah. The next naughty.
Comic. Yeah, or they did it in Batman. What was that? The graphic novel Killing Joke, right? Killing Joke. He has sex with
Barbara. I mean, some people think that there's a subtext.
Like it was alluded to, but it wasn't like physically shown.
And in my opinion, that's hogwash. It doesn't make sense. Like in Content Story, it doesn't make sense that Joker would rape her.
Yeah. You don't think that's true? You think it's you don't think you went that far?
It doesn't seem like there's it wasn't referenced directly in comics. There wasn't any mention in her in her hospital visits that she was raped or anything, or that there was any tear in her vaginal walls or whatever.
Right.
And the purpose of shooting pictures of her getting shot and naked was to have Commissioner Gordon go nuts, man.
Right.
So like, it didn't,
Right, but he wants Commissioner Gordon to think that he raped her, right?
What's that?
He wants Commissioner Gordon to think the worst, right? To think that.
I don't know. I mean, even if he thought that, like, I never saw Joker as
actually committing this action.
Yeah, he's not a sexual. Well, at least in Killing Joke, his depiction there didn't seem like a sexual.
He doesn't seem.
He's wearing, which I guess could be like the ultimate Joker. What is it? Where like he's subverting expectations and stuff. Yeah. But like he's dressed like a tourist in his shorts and stuff. He's lanky. There's no like. He's not. There's nothing in his demeanor that implies he's going to
some sort of
to rape or anything like that. It's just he's a tourist who strips her of her clothing. I guess he's got. I don't know. I've never raped anyone before. Been raped, so I have no idea.
So you don't know what? Yeah.
I wouldn't know what the action is.
Jesus Christ! This is already like the rape podcast. Like this is every single. Not putting that tag on YouTube now. But no, it is funny how people instantly like wanted like. It's like because it's two frames of Bat Dick. Like it's very like 2 panels.
Yeah.
Bat Dick. Like not even. And again, it's a shadow. Like it's. People go crazy for it though. It's like that's like the hottest comic book. Right?
I know it's a really hot topic right now.
Meanwhile, Wolverine returned this week, and he has new powers. His claws heat up, but no one's talking about it.
Does he show his dick?
No.
Then I don't want. Why'd you bring it up to me?
He's exposing 6 other phalluses. Not his dick though.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm really excited for that book. I'm a big fan of Charles Soule, so anything he does to me is gold. So it's like I'm just waiting to see like what direction he takes.
Did you read the first issue?
Not yet.
It's good. Steve McNiven does like a really good.
Oh man, I love his art.
Barry Windsor Smith impression. Like he looks like Barry Windsor Smith, and like all the hair and everything. But he's not on it anymore. I think Declan Shelby's taken over after issue 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very nice.
That's awesome. Announcements. You got some stuff coming up.
Announcements, yes.
We'll keep rapping after this for a bit, but we'll
firstly, all those attending New York Comic Con, please come by Pronto Comics booth on the Sprawl Press section, booth number 966. Also, there's the Creative Connection panel Thursday night from 7:15 to 8:45 p.m. Any of those. Buddy is great. He genuinely loves to help people. And this panel, basically, he pairs up writers, artists, people who want to get into the business, make them network, hopefully they get a project going together, and then like I've seen it, like he actually will help promote your book once you have something solid to show. Nice. He's really, really good about that. I've done Buddy's panel for years. He's a great guy, love him to death. And also, that same night, Thursday night, I'm having a comic book signing at Hold Fast Bar and Grill. The address is 364 West 46th Street between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. So please, come by. There's a full kitchen. Yeah. I would encourage people who are hungry, come early. Like doors open at 5, so I'm gonna grab something to eat before I get there. Eat, look around the place. It's beautiful. It has artwork on the walls as exposed brick. It's like a really, really nice bar, really cool place.
That's awesome.
And hopefully I will see you guys there.
Cool. And that info is online?
Cool. Actually, find me on Facebook. I do have a Cross fan book page, so I have announcements and
we'll link that. We'll link that in the video description,
and
so it's accessible.
Facebook, Dennis Knight. I have tons of stuff on there. So
cool, awesome. Yeah, that all sounds really awesome. A big thing I love about Comic-Con is the surrounding events that take place. I think that's a really cool example.
There's something going on every night. All over.
Yeah, I was at a pre-Comic-Con event not too long ago at a Brooklyn brewery for they released a new mascot, which I didn't even stay late enough to see the mascot, and I don't even think I've seen it yet. No, I was at the event for it. But they did like a defend beer thing, and you showed up, you got a couple free beers.
Oh, cool.
Some people were cosplaying and stuff, and it's just like even this early, there's already stuff going on. So.
I think I like that aspect of Comic-Con as a cosplayer because they put a lot of hard work and dedication into their cosplays.
Yeah.
And they're really cool. Like they'll take pictures with you, like to help you out, to help promote your event.
Right.
I mean, like it's like as thing is like in this business, you get exposed to so many different aspects of it. The cosplayers, the retailers, it's like there's so many different things. It's a lot of fun.
Fandom, man.
Yeah.
When are we gonna have the fan fiction tables and stuff? You know, when are fanfic writers gonna walk around and have their manuscripts and stuff?
You should.
That should be a thing.
It should be a thing, because
I think it exists to a degree online, like where people are really into fanfic.
But there should be a convention for fan fictioners, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm.
Demetrius has announced it next year, or next month down here.
That's a really good idea, though, because like, there's a community for fan fiction, obviously.
And then the speaker, the special guest will be E.L. James, who did 50 Shades of Grey as a spin-off or fanfic of Twilight.
Twilight, yeah. Is that true? Because I've heard that before.
Yeah. My friend Red was reading it as those as the fanfic was coming out. Then it was taken down when Twilight was picked picked up as. I'm sorry, when the thing.
50 Shades.
Yeah, 50 Shades was picked up as a book.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
There's a popular fan fiction website where all the stuff's put up. I'm not sure what it is.
We need to find that first before we start a con, I think. But no, Comic-Con is awesome, and like a big thing, especially with cosplayers and stuff. Like it's something I don't have a lot of personal interest in doing. Like I don't see myself ever like getting into designing costumes or like getting into the thing. But like I'm also someone who like when they actually see it in person, I'm just like blown away with how impressive it is and like how much time people will spend into it.
It's amazing. I love it.
It's insane. And then like it's funny because you quickly develop a palette for it, and like you'll see like someone in like some cute girl in like a stretch fit Spider-Man suit or something like that, and you're like, fuck you, like get out of here, like you haven't earned your place, like these guys worked all day on his Han Solo vest, like it's true. We should wrap up, I guess. Anything else? Any other points you guys are gonna bring up?
No, just thanks for having me. It's a great time.
Yeah, of course.
Great
No
conversation.
worries.
Hope like on the podcast, does well and succeeds.
Absolutely appreciate it, man. And
anything I do to help promote it, just like send me a friend request on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like promote your episodes, to share them. Like,
appreciate
whatever.
it, man. Absolutely. No worries. And
we got Drink and Draw tomorrow.
Drink and Draw tomorrow down here 7 o'clock.
Yeah, 7:30. Yeah.
7:30.
Yeah, we got a
$15
model.
was it? $15
$15, free beer. We have a model who's gonna be cosplaying as Vampirella.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll probably swing by for a bit, so the podcaster will be here. If you guys want autographs or whatever, like no big deal.
And Wednesday we're gonna have the Radical Geeks podcast. That's done by Blurred Girl Angelique Roche. Angelique
And
Roche.
who's their special guest?
Hernandez, Carlos Hernandez, who's a science fiction writer, Latinx science fiction writer who
Awesome.
does anthologies and stuff.
Awesome. That's $10 admission.
It's $10 free for subscribers. It's $7 if you buy something in the store.
Right.
But yeah, Radical Geeks is great. Blur Girl is a sci-fi channel personality. Angelique has been doing some videos for Marvel and stuff, and now they're doing this thing where they're promoting more diverse, I guess, science fiction, and comic book personalities and stuff. You know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and we'll be here next week with. Oh
wait, we also have Magic this Friday and kids' art classes on Sunday. Every Sunday and Magic every Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have any further questions about that stuff, swing by the shop. Yeah. Anyone Comics. Demetrius is always here. He sleeps here. So next week, the 1st, we have actually the producer and the director of The Ranger, which is a horror film premiering at IFC. It's Jen Wexler and Heather Buckley, and we're super excited to have them on. So next week, tune in, and that'll be out. Oh, also, just for the first episode, I'll say audio version is going to be coming out a little bit later this week. Video will be up tonight. Audio is going to be up before the 1st, certainly, and after this, it'll come out a lot smoother. It's just growing pains, But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you guys, and
thank you.
That's that.